The check hit the frozen concrete like a gunshot. Snow blew through the open garage door as a billionaire in a cashmere coat stood trembling, his polished shoes sinking into slush. Behind him, the papaya-orange McLaren 720S, declared dead by 100 elite mechanics, purred steadily in the winter air. "I don't want your money," Daniel Brooks said quietly, wiping engine grease from his cracked hands. The storm outside raged across Minneapolis. Inside, something far more powerful had just shifted. What happened next would expose more than a mechanical failure. It would uncover a secret buried beneath pride, grief, and a father's broken heart. The blizzard had been hammering Minneapolis for 3 days straight. Daniel Brooks stood in the doorway of North Star Auto Repair, watching the snow pile up against the chain-link fence. The garage sat on a quiet corner of northeast Minneapolis, tucked between a laundromat and an abandoned warehouse. 3 generations of Brooks men had worked under this roof. His grandfather had founded it in 1967. His father had kept it alive through the recession. Now it was Daniel's turn to hold the line. Behind him, the space heater hummed against the January cold. The garage smelled like motor oil, coffee, and the faint sweetness of coolant. Tools hung on pegboards with military precision. Every wrench had its place. Every socket was clean. Daniel ran a tight operation, even if the building itself was falling apart. The roof leaked. The paint was peeling. The sign out front flickered when the wind picked up. But the work was honest. And that mattered. "Dad, you seeing this?" Elijah appeared at his shoulder, 15 years old and already taller than Daniel. He pointed through the snow. "That's a McLaren." Daniel squinted. Through the white curtain of falling snow, headlights cut through the storm. The car moved slowly, engine growling like a dying animal. It was papaya orange, the kind of color that screamed money even under a layer of frost. The McLaren slid to a stop at the garage entrance. The engine made a sound Daniel had heard 1,000 times before. Death rattle, metal grinding against metal, a machine eating itself from the inside. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, and Daniel knew immediately this was going to be trouble. Edward Kensington wore a cashmere overcoat that probably cost more than Daniel's truck. His shoes were Italian leather, now soaked through with slush. He was maybe 55, with silver hair swept back and the kind of jaw that appeared on magazine covers. But his eyes were what Daniel noticed most. Cold. Calculating. The eyes of a man who measured people the way bankers measured risk. "You, the owner?" Kensington's voice cut through the wind. "Daniel Brooks." He stepped forward, extending a hand. Kensington looked at the hand like it might contaminate him. After a long pause, he shook it briefly. His palm was soft, warm. The hand of someone who had never changed a tire in his life. Edward Kensington, CEO of Kensington Dynamics. He said it like Daniel should recognize the name. "I need this car fixed. Tonight." Daniel walked around the McLaren, his breath visible in the cold. The car was beautiful, even dying. 720S, twin-turbo V8, 710 horsepower, a machine built for speed and precision. But something was desperately wrong. The engine ticked and knocked, steam rising from the hood vents. "What's the problem?" Daniel asked. "If I knew that, I wouldn't be here." Kensington's tone was sharp, dismissive. "I've taken it to 100 mechanics, elite specialists, McLaren-certified technicians, Ferrari master techs. No one can figure it out. They all say the same thing: engine's dead. Needs a full replacement. $400,000. Daniel crouched beside the front wheel, running his hand along the carbon fiber. "And you don't believe them?" "I believe they're incompetent." Kensington pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "This car meant something to someone I loved. I'm not giving up on it because a bunch of grease monkeys can't think outside the box." The words hung in the frozen air. Grease monkeys. Behind Daniel, Elijah stiffened. 12-year-old Naomi appeared in the doorway, her homework forgotten. She'd heard it too. Daniel stood slowly. Snow gathered on his shoulders. He looked at Kensington for a long moment, studying the man's face. The arrogance, the barely concealed contempt. "I can take a look," Daniel said quietly. "Give me 30 minutes. Kensington laughed. It was a cold sound, brittle as ice. 30 minutes? The head of McLaren Special Operations spent 2 weeks on this car. "You think you can?" 30 minutes, Daniel repeated. "Free diagnostic. If I'm wrong, you leave. If I'm right, you pay what I ask." Something flickered in Kensington's eyes. Interest. The look of a gambler seeing an opportunity. "Fine. But let's make this interesting." He raised his voice, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling some people. If you actually fix this, I'll pay you $150,000. Cash. Tonight." Daniel's heart skipped. That was 3 years of revenue. New roof. New tools. College fund for both kids. "And if I can't?" he asked carefully. Kensington smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You sign over this garage, plus $25,000 in cash." "I'm done wasting time with amateurs." The garage went silent except for the wind. Elijah grabbed Daniel's arm. "Dad, don't." But Daniel was already nodding. Deal, because he'd already heard it. In the death rattle, in the specific pitch of the knock. And he knew exactly what was wrong. Kensington worked fast. Within 20 minutes, the garage was packed. Men in expensive coats appeared from black SUVs, stomping snow off their shoes. They gathered around the McLaren like spectators at an execution. Daniel recognized some faces from the news. Business owners. Developers. The kind of people who shaped Minneapolis from boardrooms and country clubs. Kensington had his phone out, live streaming. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice echoing in the garage. "We're about to witness either a miracle or the end of North Star Auto Repair. This man," he gestured at Daniel, "claims he can fix what 100 experts couldn't." Laughter rippled through the crowd. A man in a Burberry scarf stepped forward. "Eddie, this is absurd. I manage the McLaren dealership in Eden Prairie. We had their top engineer fly in from California. He said the block was cracked. I run Ferrari of Minneapolis," another voice called out. "My master technician, 30 years experience, said the same thing. This is a waste of time." Daniel ignored them. He'd already pushed the McLaren into the garage, positioning it under the overhead lights. Naomi brought him his laptop. Elijah rolled over the diagnostic cart, the Autel scanner ready to connect. "Dad," Elijah whispered, "this is crazy. What if—" "Watch and learn," Daniel said softly, then louder. "Everyone stay back. Give me space to work." He connected the scanner to the OBD2 port beneath the steering wheel. The screen flickered to life, lines of code scrolling past. The crowd pressed closer, phones out, recording everything. Kensington stood at the front, arms crossed. "Clock's running. Brooks." Daniel's fingers moved across the keyboard. He pulled up the engine control unit data, scanning through thousands of lines of diagnostic information. The ECU was the brain of the car, a computer that monitored every sensor, every actuator, every microscopic change in performance. Most mechanics stopped at the error codes. Daniel went deeper. He opened the live data stream, watching real-time values. Coolant temperature, oil pressure, throttle position, ignition timing. Everything looked normal until he reached the boost pressure readings. There, the turbocharger wastegate actuator showed voltage spikes, inconsistent readings. The sensor was reporting pressure values that jumped erratically, 14.7 pounds per square inches one moment, then 22.3, then back to 9.1. No pattern, just chaos. But the interesting part was what the ECU did in response. When the sensor reported high pressure, the ECU dumped fuel and pulled timing, trying to protect the engine. When the sensor reported low pressure, the ECU added fuel and advanced timing, trying to build boost. The engine was being commanded to run rich and lean simultaneously, creating a mechanical schizophrenia that tore the motor apart from the inside. And everyone had missed it because they'd focused on the symptoms instead of the cause. Daniel stood up, wiping his hands on his coveralls. The crowd went quiet. "It's the wastegate control solenoid," he said clearly. "The actuator that regulates turbo boost pressure. The solenoid itself is failing, probably a degraded coil winding which causes erratic voltage readings. The ECU interprets this as wildly fluctuating boost pressure and responds with contradictory fuel and timing maps. That's why the engine sounds like it's dying. It's not mechanical failure. It's electrical confusion." Silence. Then someone laughed. "That's your diagnosis? A solenoid? A $3,000 part," another voice added. "You're telling us the McLaren engineers missed something that simple?" Kensington's face was unreadable. "Prove it." Daniel grabbed his multimeter. He crawled under the car, snow melting on his back where the door was still open. The wastegate solenoid was mounted on the hot side of the turbocharger, a small cylindrical component that most mechanics never directly tested. He disconnected the electrical connector and touched the probes to the terminals. "Normal resistance should be between 20 and 30 ohms, Daniel called out. "Stable, consistent." He powered up the multimeter. The reading jumped. 18.3 ohms, then 47.2, then 15.9, then 62.4, completely unstable. "Someone get under here and verify this," Daniel said. The Ferrari manager crouched down, his expensive coat dragging in the slush. He watched the multimeter for 30 seconds, his expression changing from skepticism to disbelief. "He's right," the man said quietly. "The resistance is all over the place. I've never seen that before." Daniel slid out from under the car. He faced Kensington directly. "The part costs $3,800. 2 hours labor. Call it 5,000 total. Not 400,000. Not a new engine. Just a failed solenoid that's been confusing the computer." Kensington stared at him. The crowd had gone completely silent. Outside, the wind howled, shaking the garage door. "Fix it," Kensington said finally. "Show me." Daniel moved with the precision of a surgeon. He'd already called his parts supplier a guy in St. Paul who specialized in European exotics. The replacement solenoid would arrive in 90 minutes, even in the blizzard. In the meantime, Daniel did what he always did. He worked methodically, documenting everything. The crowd had thinned slightly. Some had left to warm up in their cars. Others huddled near the space heater, nursing coffee Naomi had brewed. But most stayed, watching Daniel work with the fascination of people witnessing something they didn't understand. Kensington never moved. He stood next to the McLaren, one hand resting on the hood, his expression unreadable. Daniel walked through the diagnosis step by step, narrating for the camera still recording on Kensington's phone. "The wastegate controls exhaust flow to the turbocharger," Daniel explained, pointing to the schematic on his laptop. "When boost pressure builds, the wastegate opens slightly, bleeding off excess exhaust to prevent overboost. It's a safety mechanism. Without it, the turbo would build too much pressure and destroy the engine." He zoomed in on the electrical diagram. "The wastegate is controlled by this solenoid, essentially an electromagnetic valve. The ECU sends a pulse-width modulated signal to the solenoid, opening and closing it hundreds of times per second to maintain precise boost pressure." "And when the solenoid fails?" the Ferrari manager asked. He'd stayed, genuinely interested now. "Chaos," Daniel said simply. "The ECU can't control boost, so it sees what it thinks are massive pressure swings and tries to compensate by adjusting fuel and timing. The engine starts running wildly rich in some cylinders, lean in others. That creates the knocking sound pre-detonation from lean conditions mixed with flooding from rich conditions. It sounds like mechanical failure, but it's actually electronic confusion. The McLaren dealership manager shook his head slowly. We replaced the entire turbo assembly, twice. Cost the owner $40,000, because you treated the symptom, not the cause, Daniel said. No judgment in his voice. Just fact. The turbo wasn't bad, it was responding to bad commands. At 8:47 p.m., headlights cut through the snow. Daniel's supplier arrived in a Ford van, chains rattling on the tires. He handed Daniel a small box marked with McLaren's logo. Fresh from the distributor, the supplier said. That'll be $3,100. Daniel paid from the garage account, watching his balance drop dangerously low. If he was wrong about this, he'd just bankrupted himself. But he wasn't wrong. The replacement took longer than expected. The solenoid was buried deep in the engine bay, requiring the removal of heat shields and coolant lines. Daniel worked carefully, his hands steady despite the cold. Elijah assisted, handing him tools, holding a flashlight. The crowd watched in silence. At 10:15 p.m., Daniel torqued the last bolt. He reconnected the electrical connector, double-checked every connection, then closed the hood. "Start it," he said to Kensington. Kensington slid into the driver's seat. His hand trembled slightly as he pushed the start button. The engine turned over once, twice. Then it caught. The sound was immediate and unmistakable. The death rattle was gone. The grinding had vanished. The McLaren's V8 settled into a smooth, powerful idle, a mechanical purr that seemed to fill the entire garage with confidence. Daniel pulled up the live data on his scanner. Boost pressure readings. Stable at 14.7 pounds per square inches. No fluctuations, no spikes. The ECU had stopped fighting itself. He let the engine warm up for 5 minutes, monitoring every parameter. Oil pressure, perfect. Coolant temp, rising normally. Ignition timing, exactly where it should be. Then he nodded to Kensington. "Rev it." Kensington pressed the accelerator. The engine sang. Clean, powerful. 710 horses awakening after a long sleep. The sound was so pure, so mechanically perfect, that several people in the crowd actually stepped back. When the rev settled, the garage was silent except for the engine's idle. Daniel shut off the scanner. "It's fixed." Kensington sat in the driver's seat for a long time. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Through the windshield, Daniel could see his face, and something had changed. The arrogance was gone. The coldness had cracked. The man looked like he was trying not to cry. Finally, Kensington shut off the engine. He stepped out slowly, unsteady on his feet. The crowd erupted. "I'll be damned," the Ferrari manager said, clapping Daniel on the shoulder. "That was brilliant. $3,800, the McLaren dealer muttered. "We quoted him $400,000, but Daniel wasn't paying attention to them. He was watching Kensington, who had walked to the open garage door. Snow blew in around him. He stood there, staring out at the storm, his expensive coat dusted with white. "Mr. Kensington," Daniel said quietly. "About the payment." Kensington pulled out his checkbook. His hand shook as he wrote. When he finished, he walked back and held it out. $150,000. Daniel stared at it. That number represented everything. A new roof, modern equipment, college tuition, security for his kids. But as he reached for it, Kensington's hand opened. The check fell. It hit the concrete floor with a sound like a gunshot, spinning once before landing face up in a puddle of melted snow. Kensington dropped to his knees. Right there, in front of everyone, the billionaire CEO knelt on the frozen concrete of a failing garage in northeast Minneapolis. His expensive pants soaked through, his coat dragged in the slush, and he wept, not quietly, not with dignity. He sobbed like a man who'd been holding something inside for too long, and the dam had finally broken. The crowd didn't know where to look. Some people left quickly, uncomfortable with such raw emotion. Others stayed, frozen. Daniel knelt beside him. "Talk to me," Daniel said softly. Kensington's voice came out broken, shattered. "This was my son's car, Ryan. He died 18 months ago. Track day at Brainerd. He lost control in turn 5, 70 miles per hour into a concrete barrier. The garage went completely still. He was 23, Kensington continued. Graduated MIT, brilliant engineer. He loved cars, loved speed. This McLaren was his dream. He'd only owned it for 6 months. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. "After the funeral, I couldn't look at it, couldn't touch it. I had it towed to storage. But then I started having these dreams. Ryan was calling me, asking why I'd abandoned his car, why I'd given up on it." Kensington wiped his face roughly. "So I tried to fix it. I took it everywhere, spent $250,000, but no one could figure it out. And I started to think maybe that meant something. Maybe it was a sign that I needed to let go." He looked up at Daniel, his eyes red. "Then you fixed it in 2 hours, like it was nothing." "It wasn't nothing," Daniel said. "It was careful diagnosis, patience, not giving up." Kensington laughed bitterly. "I gave up. On the car. On everything. After Ryan died, I became someone I don't recognize. Angry. Cruel. I used my money to hurt people because I was hurting. I turned into a monster." Daniel sat back on his heels. Around them, the garage had emptied. It was just the two of them now, plus Elijah and Naomi watching from the doorway. "Grief does that," Daniel said. "Makes us into people we're not. I lost my wife 4 years ago. Cancer. For a while, I was so angry at the world I could barely function. I'd snap at my kids, push away friends. I was drowning." "What changed?" Kensington asked. "I realized anger was easy. Staying angry took no effort at all. But healing, that required strength. That required choosing to be better every single day, even when I didn't want to." Daniel picked up the check from the puddle. He held it out. "I'll take $5,000 for the repair. The rest? I don't want it." Kensington stared at him. "What?" "I don't want your money," Daniel repeated. "Not like this." The storm outside reached its peak. Wind howled through the streets, shaking the garage's metal walls. But inside, in that small circle of light, 2 men sat on the cold concrete and talked. Kensington told Daniel everything. About Ryan. About the track day that was supposed to be a celebration. Ryan had just accepted a job at SpaceX, his dream position. About the phone call from the hospital. About the funeral where Kensington had given a speech so hollow and corporate he couldn't remember a single word of it afterward. About the darkness that followed. "I fired 30 people in 6 months, Kensington said. "Not because they deserved it. Because I wanted someone to hurt the way I was hurting. I killed a housing development that would have brought affordable units to North Minneapolis. Why? Because the developer reminded me of Ryan Young. Idealistic, full of hope." He looked at his hands. "I used my money like a weapon. Legal threats, hostile takeovers. I destroyed a man's business because he parked in my spot at the country club. That's who I became. That's what grief turned me into." Daniel listened without judgment. He'd seen this before, pain that had nowhere to go except outward, hurting everyone in its path. "Why come here?" Daniel asked. "To my garage? Because everyone else gave up," Kensington said simply. 100 mechanics looked at that car and said it was dead. But something in me couldn't accept that. If Ryan's car could be saved, maybe. He trailed off. "Maybe you could be saved too," Daniel finished. Kensington nodded. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the wind began to calm. The worst of the storm was passing. Finally, Daniel stood. He extended his hand. Kensington looked at it, really looked at it this time. Not with contempt, not with calculation, just seeing another human being, offering connection. He took it. Daniel pulled him to his feet. "The check," Kensington said. "Please, Take it. Do something good with it. Daniel looked at the paper, still damp from the floor. $150,000. He thought about his kids, about the roof that leaked every spring, about the furnace that would need replacing before next winter. Then he thought about something else. "I'll take the bet money," Daniel said. That was the deal. "But the rest? Here's what I want you to do with it." Daniel walked to the workbench and grabbed a pad of paper. He sketched quickly a rough diagram of a building, with classrooms and workshop spaces. Kensington watched over his shoulder as the vision took shape. "A technical institute," Daniel explained. "For kids who fall through the cracks. Foster care. Homeless. Poor families. The ones who'll never get scholarships to MIT or Stanford. But they're smart, capable. They just need someone to teach them." He added details: automotive bays, welding stations, computer labs, automotive technology, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. Real trades that pay real money. 6-month intensive programs, job placement assistance, no tuition. Free tools, free training. Kensington was quiet for a long moment. "How much would something like that cost?" he asked. "To do it right? 10 million. Property, equipment, operating costs for the first 3 years. Daniel set down the pen. "I know that's a lot. I'll do it," Kensington said immediately. Daniel blinked. "What? 10 million. I'll fund the whole thing." Kensington's voice was steady now, stronger. "On one condition. We name it after Ryan. The Ryan Kensington Technical Institute." Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. He'd like that? He'd love it. Ryan always said the education system failed people. That college wasn't the only path. He wanted to teach. After SpaceX. This. Kensington gestured at the sketch. This is exactly what he would have built. They shook hands. A real handshake this time. Not a business transaction, a partnership. "I'll need your help," Kensington admitted. "I don't know anything about running a school, and I don't know anything about managing $10 million, Daniel said. "So we'll figure it out together." Outside, the snow had stopped. The storm clouds were breaking apart, revealing stars. Elijah and Naomi came out of the office, watching their father and the billionaire shake hands. They didn't understand everything that had happened, but they understood the important part. Sometimes fixing the engine means fixing the man. Spring came slowly to Minneapolis. By March, the snow had melted into gray slush. By April, green shoots appeared in the boulevards. By May, Daniel and Kensington had purchased the old Northrop Technical College building on Broadway Avenue, a 3-story brick structure that had been abandoned for 5 years. The renovation took 4 months. Kensington handled the financing, cutting through red tape with the efficiency of someone who'd built corporate empires. Daniel handled the curriculum design, drawing on 30 years of garage experience and consultation with other trade professionals. They gutted the interior, replaced ancient electrical systems, installed modern HVAC, built 12 automotive bays with hydraulic lifts, created welding booths with proper ventilation, equipped a machine shop with lathes and mills, set up computer labs with CAD software. But the most important work was recruitment. Daniel drove through North Minneapolis, through Phillips, through the poorest neighborhoods of St. Paul. He visited homeless shelters, foster group homes, community centers. He carried flyers for the Ryan Kensington Technical Institute, and he talked to kids who'd been told their whole lives they weren't college material. "You don't need college," Daniel told a 17-year-old named Marcus Hill, who was sleeping on his friend's couch after aging out of foster care. "You need skills. You need a path. We're offering both." Marcus was skeptical. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Free training, free tools, 6 months of intensive instruction. Then, we help you find a job. Starting wage for a junior technician is $25 an hour. HVAC techs make more. Certified welders can pull 40. Why would you do this?" Daniel looked him in the eye. Because nobody helped me when I was your age. Because the system fails kids like us. Because someone needs to build a ladder for people the world gave up on. Marcus enrolled the next day. By August, they had 40 students. 20 in automotive, 10 in HVAC, 6 in welding, 4 in electrical. Ages 17 to 24, diverse as Minneapolis itself. Black kids from North, Latino kids from Phillips, white kids from trailer parks in Fridley, Native kids from Franklin Avenue, all of them hungry. All of them ready to prove themselves. The institute opened on September 15th. Kensington gave a speech at the ribbon cutting. He stood in front of the building, Ryan's picture on a banner behind him, and he told the truth. "My son died because I wasn't paying attention," Kensington said. "I was too busy building a company, making money, chasing success. I missed his baseball games, skipped his graduation, canceled family dinners for business meetings. And when he died, I realized I'd wasted the time we had." He paused, his voice thick. "I can't get that time back. But I can honor his memory by helping people. This institute isn't charity, it's justice. It's what should have existed all along, a place where talent matters more than money, where hard work opens doors, where second chances are the rule, not the exception." The students applauded. Daniel stood off to the side, watching. This was bigger than fixing cars now. This was fixing futures. 3 months into the program, everything fell apart. It started on a Tuesday morning in December. Daniel was teaching an engine diagnostics class when 2 Minneapolis police officers walked into the automotive bay. They asked for Marcus Hill. Marcus stood slowly, confusion on his face. "What's this about?" "We need you to come with us," the lead officer said. "We have some questions about a stolen vehicle." The classroom went silent. "Stolen vehicle?" Daniel stepped forward. "There must be a mistake. Silver Porsche Cayenne. Taken from a residence in Edina 2 nights ago. Someone used it to hit 3 ATMs. We have footage of Mr. Hill driving the vehicle." Marcus's face went pale. "I didn't steal anything. I was—" "You can explain downtown," the officer interrupted. They put Marcus in handcuffs. Daniel's mind raced. "I'm calling a lawyer. Marcus, don't say anything until we get representation." But the damage was done. By that afternoon, the story was everywhere. Local news picked it up. Technical Institute student arrested in car theft ring. The headline implied guilt. The photos showed Marcus in handcuffs. The narrative was set. Kensington called Daniel that evening, his voice tight. "We're getting crucified. Board members are calling for the institute to close. Donors are backing out. They're saying we're training criminals." "Marcus didn't do this," Daniel said. "How do you know?" "Because I know him. He's been here every morning at 7, stays late every night. He's trying to build something." Daniel paced his office. Someone set him up. Even if that's true, the optics are terrible. One bad story, and everything we built collapses. Daniel thought about Marcus, about the other 39 students who'd invested everything in this chance, about the future hanging in the balance. "Then we find the truth," Daniel said. "We prove Marcus is innocent, and we do it fast." He spent that night reviewing security footage from the institute. Marcus had been there Monday night, working on a transmission rebuild until 9 p.m. Daniel had the time-stamped footage. The Porsche was stolen at 8:15 p.m. from a house 15 miles away. Impossible for Marcus to be in both places, but when Daniel showed this to the police, they dismissed it. Security footage can be tampered with. We have traffic cameras showing him driving the vehicle. We have his fingerprints on the steering wheel. Of course his fingerprints are there, Daniel argued. He's an automotive student. He could have worked on that car weeks ago at a dealership or repair shop before it was stolen. The detective shrugged. "Tell it to the judge." The preliminary hearing was set for January 10th. Daniel knew they needed more than security footage. They needed to find out how Marcus's fingerprints got on that car and who really stole it. He called a staff meeting. All 40 students gathered in the main workshop. "Marcus needs our help," Daniel said. "The police think he's guilty. The media's decided he's guilty. But we know better. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to investigate." A student named Jennifer Carlson raised her hand. She was in the HVAC program, sharp and analytical. "Investigate how?" "The Porsche hit 3 ATMs. That means traffic cameras, witnesses, a pattern. Someone planned this. Someone who knew how to make it look like Marcus did it." Daniel pulled up a map of the ATM locations. "We need to canvass the areas, pull footage, talk to people, find the real thief." "Why would someone frame Marcus?" another student asked. Daniel had been thinking about that. Marcus has been the star student. Highest grades, best attendance. He's getting attention. What if someone wanted to ruin that? What if someone wanted to prove we're training criminals so the institute shuts down? The room went quiet. Then Jennifer stood. "I'm in. What do you need?" One by one, the students volunteered. They organized into teams. Some would canvass neighborhoods. Others would review social media, looking for any mentions of the Porsche or the ATM hits. A few would reach out to contacts in the automotive industry, tracking where the Porsche had been serviced. They worked through Christmas break. Daniel paid them from the institute's dwindling funds. Kensington hired a private investigator to assist, and slowly a picture emerged. The truth came from an unexpected source. Jennifer Carlson found it. She'd been reviewing footage from a convenience store near the first ATM hit. The police had already pulled the footage, but they'd focused on the Porsche. Jennifer looked at everything else, and she saw it. A white van parked across the street. Same van at all 3 ATM locations. Always arriving 10 minutes before the Porsche, leaving 10 minutes after. She ran the plates. The van was registered to a chop shop in St. Paul, a garage that had been investigated twice for selling stolen parts, but never prosecuted. Daniel took the information to the private investigator, who went deeper. Phone records, financial transactions, security footage from other businesses. The pattern became clear. The chop shop had been stealing high-end cars for parts. The Porsche was supposed to be stripped and sold. But when they learned Marcus worked at the New Technical Institute, they saw an opportunity. Frame the student. Destroy the school's reputation. Eliminate a competitor in the automotive training space. They detailed the Porsche at a shop where Marcus had done a brief internship 3 months earlier. His fingerprints were everywhere from that work. Then they reported the car stolen, used it for the ATM hits, and abandoned it with Marcus's tools inside tools he'd reported missing 2 weeks earlier. The private investigator brought everything to the county attorney. On January 9th, 1 day before Marcus's hearing, the real thieves were arrested. The chop shop owner. 2 employees. They confessed to everything, hoping for reduced sentences. The charges against Marcus were dropped. The hearing on January 10th became a press conference instead. The county attorney stood with Marcus, Daniel, and Kensington, explaining the frame job, apologizing for the rush to judgment. The media narrative flipped overnight. Technical Institute student exonerated. Frame job exposes chop shop ring. Community rallies to save students' future. But the real story was what happened next. Kensington stood at the podium, his face hard. The chop shop that tried to destroy Marcus's life will face more than criminal charges. I'm personally funding a civil lawsuit. We will pursue damages for defamation, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And every dollar we win goes directly into a legal defense fund for other students who face false accusations. He looked directly at the cameras. You tried to break us. You failed. This institute doesn't just teach skills. We teach resilience. We protect our people. And we don't back down. The press conference ended with Marcus standing between Daniel and Kensington, free and vindicated. That night, enrollment applications flooded in. 50 new students, then 100, then 200. People had been watching. They'd seen a community fight for one of their own. They'd seen what happened when institutions kept promises. The Ryan Kensington Technical Institute wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. 18 months after that winter night in the garage, Daniel stood in the auditorium of the Ryan Kensington Technical Institute and watched 40 students cross the stage. The graduates wore navy blue coveralls with their names embroidered on the chest. No caps and gowns, no pretense, just the uniform of people ready to work. Marcus Hill graduated with honors. He'd already accepted a position at a high-end restoration shop, starting at $35 an hour. Jennifer Carlson was joining a commercial HVAC company with full benefits. The others had similar offers, real jobs, real futures, real proof that talent and determination could overcome any background. The auditorium was packed. Families, community members, local business owners who'd come to recruit. And, sitting in the front row, Edward Kensington held a framed photo of his son. When the last graduate crossed the stage, Kensington stood to speak. Ryan never wanted to be defined by money, he began. He wanted to be defined by impact, by making things better, by fixing what was broken. He paused, looking at the graduates. 18 months ago, I was broken. My son was gone. I'd become someone cruel and small. I came to a garage in northeast Minneapolis because I didn't know where else to go, and a mechanic named Daniel Brooks did more than fix a car. He fixed me. Kensington's voice strengthened. Ryan loved engines. He loved the puzzle of figuring out what was wrong and making it right. He would have loved all of you. He would have been proud to know his name is on this building, that his legacy builds futures instead of sitting in a grave. He held up the photo. This institute works because of people who refuse to give up. Daniel, who saw potential where others saw problems. Our students, who fought for Marcus when the world assumed guilt. Our community, who invested in second chances. Kensington set down the photo. Today, 40 people walk out of here with skills and dignity. Next year, we'll graduate 100. The year after, 200. We're not changing the world. We're changing lives. One student at a time. One family at a time. One future at a time. The applause was thunderous. Daniel stood at the back of the auditorium, watching. His kids were there: Elijah, now 17 and already enrolled in the next automotive program. Naomi, 14 and talking about becoming an engineer. He thought about that winter night. The blizzard. The dying McLaren. The billionaire on his knees. Sometimes fixing the engine is the easy part. Sometimes what's really broken is the person, the system, the barriers that tell people they don't deserve a chance. But if you work carefully, if you diagnose the real problem, if you're patient and persistent and refuse to accept that things can't be fixed, then anything is possible. The graduates filed out of the auditorium, their families surrounding them. Camera flashes, hugs, tears of joy. These were the moments that mattered. Not the money, not the recognition, just the simple truth that everyone deserves a shot. Daniel walked outside. Spring had fully arrived. The trees were green. The air was warm. The city hummed with life. He stood on the front steps of the institute, looking up at the sign. Ryan Kensington Technical Institute. Below it, a smaller plaque read, "Fixing what others said couldn't be fixed. Teaching what others said couldn't be taught. Building futures where others saw dead ends." Daniel smiled. Then he went back inside. There was work to do. Always work to do. But it was good work, and that made all the difference.